Hi, I'm Jada from Girl from the Coast Designs. I create knitting patterns and tutorials designed with structure, clarity and care. Short row shaping is a useful technique to learn in knitting because it helps you create shape inside the body of a garment. In this instance, short rows have been used to raise the back neckline of a sweater, which thereby lowers the front of the sweater. This is in a top-down garment, and that creates additional ease and comfort and fit for the wearer. So short rows are worked back and forth across the back of the sweater, into the sleeves and down here into the front of the garment to create a nice curved neckline that sits comfortably on the body. There are a number of short row techniques that you can use, including German short rows, the wrap and turn, but the technique that I favour is the Japanese short row because it tends to be the one that is the least obvious on the garment when it's being worn. It doesn't create a visible hole and therefore works well inside the structure of a garment. So Japanese short rows are worked by marking the toining point of each short row and later working those marked stitches together with their partners. So you will need removable stitch markers because they're going to guide you as you go. Alright, so on this neckline, which is just a completed folded neckline, I'm wanting to raise that back of that neckline to lower the front so it's more comfortable. I should say that short rows are also useful for things like creating bust darts, curving the bottom of a sweater, or something like creating a sleeve cap so it sits more comfortably on the shoulder. But if I just work this short row for you and demonstrate for you how you actually use the technique. So you work along to where your turn is going to occur for the short row. So for me that is 14 stitches. So that's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and all I do is put a stitch marker on my working yarn, turn, slip that first stitch and work back. So here's my short row marker from that stitch I just did. I've worked back to my beginning of the row, worked across the back of the garment and worked the number of stitches across to my next short row. So I work the stitch, I turn the work, I put my stitch marker on, slide that stitch back and off I go. Now all the stitch marker does is actually hold a little bit of additional yarn there that will be worked with the stitch when we rectify it. So I'll work back across and I'll show you how we actually resolve that short row additional yarn. So again, turning the work, putting my stitch marker on the needle, or on the yarn rather, and carrying on. So what I'm going to do is work all my short rows. I'll leave the markers in so you can see where the turns have occurred, and then I will show you the right side of the fabric and what that looks like and the impact it has on the shaping of the garment itself. So to close the short row on a purl side, the stitch that has the stitch marker below it, I slide the purl stitch across, you pull that additional yarn back up onto the needle, that purl stitch goes back. Normally I would remove this holder, but we'll just work with it at this point, and you purl the two together. So working the turn on a purl row, you get to the gap, turn your work, attach your stitch marker to hold the additional yarn. I find it easiest to actually hold that in place so it doesn't slide down. And the turn is complete. So to resolve the turn on the right side row, I knit to the stitch, I lift it onto the needle and knit those two together. So here are the short rows completed. As I say, I've left these stitch markers in place so you can see how they've contributed to this overall shape. And that is what we now have. We have a gentle wedge that goes around the back of the neckline that will raise that back neck. So instead of sitting flat like this, it's going to sit like that, which lowers the front neckline. What does that do in terms of shape? So if we take our edges together down here, somewhat awkwardly, we now have a neckline that looks like this. So looking at the fabric, it is not obvious where these short row turns have occurred. If I test that and put white paper underneath, so that's all looking really good, and obviously it will improve after washing and blocking, but I'm really happy with how those short rows have actually worked.